Is there anything you would have done differently?
We reported a true story.
Our colleague Brian Williams is back in Kuwait City tonight after a close call in the skies over Iraq.
Controversial Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh and questions about Kavanaugh's drinking in the past.
Sean Hannity, come on up, Sean Hannity.
Today, Andrew Cuomo is having a moment.
Hi, I am Chris Steyerwalt.
And I'm Eliana Johnson.
Heck yeah, you are. Welcome to Ink-Stained Wretches, where we break down what's going wrong and what's going right with the American news media. And Eliana Johnson, today you're feeling very pregnant is where you are. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
It's pronounced.
Yeah, and I'm not even that pregnant, which is the worst part of it.
But this is second time around, so there's a dread factor about having to get all pregnant, but also you know the rope, you know the terrain.
No, it only gets worse from here until that little baby's here.
And then how great is that?
Yeah.
Then how great is that? Well, we're here with you on your journey. We're here with you on your journey, your natal journey.
Thank you.
Yes, of course.
Looking forward to having the little baby here.
Yes, that'll be nice. That's right. You sell the naming rights. We'll Wretch brand it.
That will not happen, but I'm happy to pretend to be open to names.
Yeah, just feel free to email us if you have a suggestion for a branding offer.
Sure.
Leo from Capital Bank Shares.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Chris, I actually need your direction on what we're doing up top here because I wanted to talk about the State of the Union. You said that's old news. So where are we starting here?
Well, I have a bias against the State of the Union because I hate it.
Well, since this wasn't a State of the Union, I'm not going to argue with you about that, but where do you want to start?
That is the most actually form of actuallying, and I did it to many people.
It's so annoying.
It is, and I did it.
Completely was. See, I think that what I just did is more offensive than can you get me a egg sandwich?
It's not a State of the Union.
Yes.
The tradition of presidents asking to give an address to a joint session of Congress, which Ronald Reagan did in 1981 to sell his tax plan. Obama did Obama did a double tap. He got one on the recession and one on he was asking for a stimulus package, and then one on Obamacare. And now we've just slid to the point where it's just a State of the Union. It's just one more. And of course, when Biden did it in 21, he asked for an address to Congress to talk about the coronavirus. I hate the State of the Union as a delivered address, and I hate that we have State of the Union inflation. Donald Trump delivered the longest State of the Union.
I also hate that.
It's so long. It was 100 minutes long.
I'm with you.
So since you've got me,
what I don't understand is the guidance for everything is, harder to make it shorter. Shorter is better. Why is this any different? I'm totally with you on that.
So I'll just vituperate the institution for another moment, which is Woodrow Wilson revived a practice that Thomas Jefferson. So basically, George Washington and John Adams gave addresses to Congress. Thomas Jefferson abandoned it because he said it was monarchical and not appropriate for the executive to lecture the legislative. They were always the constitutional requirement of the update on the State of the Union was delivered in writing for the rest of the time. And then Woodrow Wilson revived the practice and started. And Woodrow Wilson gave speech after speech after speech to Congress and was lecturing them all the time. I should know exactly. I want to say that Calvin Coolidge restored the written one, but whatever the case, the affair was a very modest affair in the early 20th century. You can find the one about Dwight Eisenhower goes down, and it's a daytime event, and you can picture the kind of lunch that they had while they're drinking black coffee and smoking cigarettes. There's definitely molded Jell-O salad involved with Dwight Eisenhower lunchtime State of the Union. And then in 64, Lyndon Johnson turns it into a TV spectacle because he is starting his 64 presidential campaign, and he was denied an inauguration ceremony, blah, 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 blah. Fast forward to now. It's interminable. It is forever, and it doesn't do anything, right? What did we get out of the State of the Union? We got Al Green's cane, whoever. And by the way, I think it was the Democratic Progressive Caucus.
Well, so I will push back on that for 1 second.
Tell me.
I will say we did get an interesting window into the Democratic Party, and not that we didn't have it at all before, but into their total inability to respond to Trump in any kind of substantive, coherent.
I thought Alyssa Slotkin was very good.
She was very good.
I thought she was very good.
I agree. I thought she was very good. And yet, at the same time, who's talking about Alyssa Slotkin?
Me.
Because she
I'm
was
here.
Okay. You are. That's great. But
a lone voice.
But she was totally overshadowed
by Al Green.
The antics in the chamber, and not just Al Green, but the little paddles they were holding up by their stupid little outfits.
And they had
that they were wearing.
They wore resist T-shirts. A couple of them walked out with their T-shirts on.
And then on top of that, not only did they do that, they told everybody they were going to do it earlier in the day.
Yeah.
They went to Axios and said, we're going to walk out and we're going to do this and we're going to do that.
So,
I mean, it was so stupid.
So Donald Trump comes out. He tells, he makes out lie, falsehood. I don't know. He probably believes it's true, but says all this stuff and then is partisan in the Democrats' face, all this stuff. And the Democrats respond, it escalate it. And a year ago, it was Marjorie Taylor Greene and Joe Biden. It was terrible. And then this year, it just gets worse. It just gets worse and worse. And I don't think it's an institution worth keeping. I haven't thought it was an institution worth keeping for a long time, but definitely that we have reached the idiocracy phase of people shouting back and forth at each other. And by the way, Al Green, no one has wanted to be, he's old and he uses his cane. He could have stayed, but he wanted to be ejected, right? Some of the coverage made it sound like he was dragged out. They were like,
no. That was the whole
they're like,
point.
can you sit down? And he's like, no. All right. I need a minute to shuffle out of my seat and get out of here. It was preposterous. My bias against the State of the Union is entire. Now, I was always against these speeches and found them dreadful. And now it is entire.
I saw an amazing Babylon Bee story that was like Hitler defeated by opposition holding up tiny paddles with messages on them. That was very funny.
Would you go? I wouldn't go. I would absolutely not go. If I was a member of Congress, I'd absolutely not go to hear that. I would not be there.
That really made me laugh.
So what everybody in Washington is talking about is, are we going to have a recession? And the coverage around the recession and the talking, the interesting thing. So talking down the economy is a historically more common thing when there are Republican presidents than there are Democratic presidents, right? The skepticism around this stuff. But this time around, and here's the lead from Reuters, a U.S. economy praised for its surprising resilience during the pandemic, high inflation and rapid interest rate hikes faces a new challenge from President Trump's self-declared trade war, seen by economists as a recipe for fewer jobs, slower growth, and higher prices. So as we're recording this, we are having tariffs 25% on Mexico and Canada, but not for cars. And
cars got a month exemption.
Right. They get a month exemption.
We'll see where that ends up.
We'll see where that ends up. And maybe and now the administration says there's going to be some carve-outs for agricultural products. So if you were to carve out agricultural products and cars, I guess we're
The lobbyists are hard at work.
This is I don't know whether it's a golden age for America, but this is definitely a golden age for K Street. The money flowing into Washington for trying to affect the decisions of the administration are many. But it's interesting, if I dare say, I note a gleeful tone about recession. And I note a gleeful tone in left-leaning outlets that are like, yeah, Trump's going to get what he deserves. There's going to be a recession. But even more amazing, I hear Republicans tell me that a recession wouldn't be that bad. And I had a Republican who is a person in a position to know, say that a recession might not be that bad. And I said, have you tried it? Are you familiar with what happens? It's pretty wild. Oh, and I know this is going out of order. Our front page is just chaos now because of me. But the Wall Street Journal had a really good piece on this. The two-headed monster stalking the economy has a name, Stagflation. And the idea of that you could have rate cuts, you could have the Federal Reserve trying to stimulate a declining economy and still have prices go up. And the thing about those cheering for a recession on the left and those on the right who are sanguine about a recession is you may not get that. What you might get is stagflation. What you might get is a stagnant economy where prices continue to go up. The way that we have managed to get through, the way we got through the very difficult inflationary period was that the economy continued to grow. Things continued to get better and better for the economy. Jobs were up, everything was up, but it just wasn't keeping pace with prices. You can have a situation where the economy is declining, but prices are not coming down along with them. And that's something no one should wish for, no one should be gleeful about, no one should be casual about, because much like a government shutdown, it's a lot easier to get in than it is to get out.
I do think, sort of to state the obvious, but the hope among probably, well, I think it's different among Republicans and Democrats, but for Republicans is that this will teach Donald Trump a lesson, that his economic policies and his predilection to use tariffs as a punitive tool against our both allies and enemies alike is bad economic policy and will end up hurting him, hurting the country.
To continue my address to a joint session of Congress vituperation, this could have been my obsession. Poll on Trump 2025 joint address to Congress finds large majority of viewers approve, says CBS News for their poll, which I assume, Nate, was done with YouGov. Yes. Yes, YouGov. Okay. Garbage poll. YouGov is not, don't do it. Don't use it. Number one. Number two, who do you think was watching the State of the Union speech? CNN does these polls, and this is just, it's a lasting obsession for mine as a person who consumes a lot of public opinion research. We took a poll, see, after the State of the Union, see, and the people who watched it said they thought it was great. How many Democrats watched Donald Trump's State of the Union address or address to a joint session of Congress? How many people were there for all 100 minutes taking notes like, well, I came into this with an open mind, but after the conclusion of this speech, I'm skeptical. I hate these polls. These are useless. And then, of course, Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, held up a printout of this poll at the podium in the briefing room the next day to be like, America loved Donald Trump's address. Stop doing these polls. Please, I beseech you, stop doing these polls.
All right, I can't even keep track with where we are here now.
Well, now we're on. To I think maybe wrap up. Well, no, we're not done with the State of the Union yet. After that, because we have to talk about Nicole Wallace and
and this is a bigger
Rachel Maddow
topic, which was the Democrats' reaction to look, in every State of the Union, there are moments where really everybody should stand up and applaud, which is like, hey, aren't the troops great?
Right.
And yay for the
Our mothers.
United
People love,
States
yes.
Armed Forces. And there were a couple of these in the Trump address, one of which was when he made this 13-year-old brain cancer survivor a
honorary
Secret Service member. And then the one that I really liked was when he told this 17 or 18-year-old, you've been admitted to West Point, and the kid's mother was standing next to him, and she got all teary. And then the West Point kid and the 13-year-old were high-fiving each other, and it was really nice. And then by contrast, there were heart-rending moments when Trump recognized the widows or children of fallen police officers or the families of Americans who were murdered by illegal immigrants. And the Democrats neither applauded nor stood to recognize the sacrifices and the tragedies of these people. And again, it's like, this is all good for Trump. They are not helping their own cause here.
So the Nicole Wallace piece of it and the MSNBC piece of it was awful. I'm less inclined to think that there's political consequence or whatever from who stood up for what and whether they clapped for this. Republicans have said, Donald Trump has said, and he made it part of his speech, there's nothing I could say that would get you to clap for it. And then they proved it, right? That they wouldn't clap for brain cancer victims and West Point appointees and all of that. And it's true. But I also think it's a little rich for Donald Trump, who called Elizabeth Warren Pocahontas during his speech and said that Joe Biden was the worst president ever. And it's like, how were you not following what I said very closely so that you would know all of the moments where you're supposed to stand up? I assume many of the Democrats who were there, and I had one Republican tell me that it was a plan. They all agreed not to stand up. I think if you're a Democrat there, you've zoned out completely. By the time you get to minute whatever, you've zoned out completely. But can we talk about MSNBC?
Well, this is of a piece with
Right.
not only not standing, but then trying to dunk on
This was wild. Yeah,
children.
This was wild.
Should we play the Nicole Wallace?
Play it.
He wants to be a cop. He knows what he wants to do. And maybe when you have childhood cancer, that crystallizes for you. And I hope he has a long life as a law enforcement officer. But I hope he never has to defend the United States Capitol against Donald Trump's supporters. And if he does, I hope he isn't one of the 6 who loses his life to suicide. And I hope he isn't one who has to testify against the people who carried out acts of seditious conspiracy and then live to see Donald Trump pardon those people.
I think that was the response heard around the world.
Rachel Maddow had similarly freighted things to say about it. And here's a good tip. Probably don't politicize. Don't say anything bad about a sick child getting an award. Don't freight it. Just let it go. But this is a problem on the left and it's a problem on the right. Can you let anything go without smearing it with politics? Can anything be allowed to go by and not say, how about nothing? You know what they could have said about the 13-year-old? Nothing. But what they were trying to do, and I'm sure they were sincere, was say, we have to say something good about this, but we can't let Donald Trump off the hook on this at all. We have to make sure that we ding it every time, and it's silly. Also here, we have the New York Times during Trump's rowdy speech to Congress, the quiet moments said the most. President Trump's comments on tariffs and Social Security sent something of a chill through the House chamber. This was a great Sean McCreesh piece that I really enjoyed. It was a scene piece that he did inside the House chamber, and the Times had a million pieces on this, and he focused on the Republicans instead of the Democrats, and it was very interesting as he was sussing out how the speech was playing on the Republican side. instead of on the Democratic side. It was a really good scene piece. I enjoyed it very much. Well done, Sean McCreesh.
Up next, Chris, you had flagged this Wall Street Journal piece.
Oh my gosh.
The hustling expert behind Argentina's $250 million crypto scandal.
Look at the
I did
picture.
not know Argentina was having a crypto scandal, but he looks like a freak.
Look at the picture of this guy is amazing. Hayden Davis. So the story is that Javier Milei, the guy who gifted Elon Musk a chainsaw, who had been having a lot of success in Argentina, which was in a very different place than the United States, but is in many ways a model for Elon Musk and the Doge efforts and all of that stuff. This guy, I'll read. Davis, his family, and their venture capital firm, Kelsier Ventures, were behind the February 14th launch of Libra, a meme coin that was intended to help fund the development of the Argentine economy, according to a website describing the project. When Milei promoted Libra on social media, the price soared until it crashed, eviscerating the roughly $1 billion in market value. More than 10,000 investors have lost a total of at least $250 million, according to the blockchain analytic firms Nansen. Davis, though, has acknowledged that he walked away with close to $100 million by quickly selling before the crash. Now, why do I bring this up? I bring it up because, and I want to say for the tech human beings that might be listening to this, blockchain is a technology and an approach that can dramatically improve, make life better. So much about end-to-end, so much about blockchain could help us have better government services, more security, could do all of this stuff. Donald Trump floated the idea of said he was going to start a crypto reserve, which would be basically like starting a Beanie Baby reserve, which would basically be saying, here's a thing that we say has value because other people say it has value, and the government is going to buy a bunch of it as a strategic reserve for the future, which is just it's a bananas thing to do. We have a gold reserve we have in part a gold reserve because the Federal Reserve has to have a certain amount of gold in its New York bank for international transactions or something or whatever. But we have a gold reserve because the gold used to be the reserve currency. We used to have a gold-backed currency in the United States. We had all of this gold. FDR took us off the gold standard, but we still have a bunch of gold. Whatever. That's fine. I don't think it factors heavily into the way that the United States does business, that we would have a competing crypto reserve, a competing digital Beanie Baby reserve is just wild to me. And when I look at where are the flashpoints, the problem points for Musk, Trump, and all of this stuff, crypto seems like a real likely place.
Yeah.
And the Wall Street Journal lays out the story of how Javier Milei, thinking that it was like, yeah, okay, if we're all doing crypto now, if we're all boosting crypto, I'll boost this crypto. He did it. It cost people a ton of money, and now people are mad at Milei, who I am more than willing to believe did not profit from this. And what was his name? Sam Bankman-Fried. When Sam Bankman-Fried went down, I thought, well, surely politicians will steer clear of crypto for a good while now. But do you remember when the pastor who gave the super shouty benediction at Trump's inauguration?
Yes.
Within the day was like, also check out my meme coin. So the Wall Street Journal has put down a marker with Hayden Davis as a cautionary tale of what could be coming for Milei's imitators in the United States. Interesting piece, one that I would not have known about. Okay, does that take us through our actually it's not a State of the Union
yes.
chapter?
Yes.
Okay.
That's a good name for the chapter.
Okay, that brings us then. This is related and kind of interesting. Excellent transition placement, Colin. At 10 out of 10. Gavin Newsom breaks with Democrats on trans athletes in sports. Now, this is a biz news kind of story because Gavin Newsom has a podcast.
This is the first episode.
And who did he have?
Charlie Kirk.
Who's Charlie Kirk?
Charlie Kirk is the
Turning Point
embodiment
USA.
of
Yes.
MAGA. And Donald Trump's biggest fan.
Yeah.
And enforcer.
And Gavin Newsom has a podcast, and he's going to have he had promised that he would have MAGA figures on, and he robustly delivered in the first one with the Prince of MAGA, Charlie Kirk. And then Gavin Newsom did something very interesting, which is he stipulated as a matter of course that he agreed that trans women should not participate in women's sports, in girls' sports. And I'm looking at Gavin Newsom.
And seeing a 2028 presidential
And
bid.
I'm seeing a guy who is ready to we saw it when, remember his debate with Ronnie D?
Yep.
And a guy who is trying to figure out how to surf the right-wing media ecosystem to his advantage. I think he has substantial problems getting through a Democratic primary. But here's how I will say it. If Democrats are ready to listen to Alyssa Slotkin, who, by the way, for our obligatory John Podhoretz reference, he informed me that that her grandparents were the Ballpark Frank people, which fantastic. If you're a meatpacking heiress and you're in the United States Senate, I want to talk about it. But and it's a good Frank. Ballpark is a good Frank. But if Democrats are thinking about how to move to the middle and do that stuff, does Gavin Newsom have a chance? I don't know.
I'm going to bet that within 24 hours, quotes and clips of Gavin Newsom saying that transgender children should be allowed in sports as a matter of fairness, diversity, equity, what have you, are going to emerge. That is my bet.
I bet you're right.
Yes.
I bet you're right. So we'll see how he can see how he rides on the Rogan zeitgeist out there.
Yeah.
Were you surprised? I think you even said that Tom Yamas?
Yes.
That Tom Yamas will replace Lester Holt at the NBC Nightly News. You foretold it. You were right.
I was not surprised.
He used to be at ABC, right?
No, he's been at NBC for a while.
But he
back in the day.
Yeah.
But he's been at NBC and been being groomed for this position, which is why I'm not surprised, for several years.
So an unremarkable, would you call it a solid choice?
Unremarkable, fine. I don't really think it matters that much.
Okay.
But yeah, unremarkable.
Disney swinging the axe at ABC. The highest profile decision is they shut down 538. Now, for me, Nate Moore and I, hardest hit, this is painful because 538 was a great repository for polling data, right? Whether you liked their pollster rankings or you liked whatever, it was a great, and one of the best things about 538, and Nate will correct me if I'm wrong, I think they had a decent amount of flexibility in terms of you could screen for things, search for things, you could set parameters for things on dates. A very transparent process. It was useful, and so polling nerds hardest hit. But ABC fired 200 people, and including 538. The ABC News Magazine shows 2020 and Nightline are consolidating into one unit. ABC is eliminated. So, 538 was down to 15 employees. Do you remember when 538 was going to be everything?
It's similar to the sort of BuzzFeed. What was the one that had an HBO show based in Brooklyn? oh my gosh, how am I blanking on this? Vice.
Oh, Vice.
The data sites had their moment like that too, but ABC News is shrinking.
And I'd be very curious to know what Nate Silver does from here, because basically he got out and took his algorithm, and Nate Silver definitely won the 2024 election. He did well. He had Harris as a coin flip favorite, but he did, I don't know about you. Did you use him during the election?
For sure.
I found him very useful during the election.
Yep.
I thought he was back. He was better than ever in some ways as a helpful tool to decipher the election. And I wonder if he'll buy back 538, and if ABC would sell it to him.
You know who I saw a tweet about this was Punchbowl News that said, "Is it for sale?"
Yeah, that'd be. I mean,
Not crazy.
There's a market out there, because definitely it's an underserved place, because Real Clear Politics does not feed the bulldog in terms of what data nerds want,
Right.
And that'd be. I'll be interested to see.
Chris, that brings us to our obsessions of the week. Where we break down the stories we can't get out of our heads. And mine was this Mediaite piece about the Washington Post's change of direction on the editorial page. And their piece is, despite Bezos' efforts to shove WAPO opinion to the right, op-ed still taking defiantly anti-Trump, anti-Musk tone. Okay, I thought this was a facile file.
Could have been.
Because, look, the Post could have gone about this two ways, or I'm sure there are many more than two, but, basically two with shades of gray in between. One was an announcement of the direction they hope to take, which is what, or they plan to take, which is what they did, and then moves in that direction over the course of 1, 2, 3 years. The other was a hiring of people who align with their vision and a move in that direction, a show don't tell.
Right.
And then an announcement of, here are the moves we have made and this is where we're going. But it is so silly to say, 1 week after Jeff Bezos said, we're making a change, all the same staff is still doing the same things. They don't even have an opinion page editor right now.
Well,
so I'm not really sure how the page is supposed to have changed drastically in the past week. We've talked about this before, but the real challenge for this paper is going to be, who do they hire as opinion page editor? Who do they bring in? And how do those people execute these changes?
Well, something Will Lewis ought to do is probably have lunch with knowledgeable conservatives and talk to them about that. He should probably talk to anybody. Do you know anybody who's done that?
No comment.
No comment on that.
No comment on that. But there are certainly lots of people out there and lots of conservative opinion journalists. I am not among those people who works in the realm of opinion. But those are the questions I think people should be focused on, not like dunking on the fact that, Ruth Marcus still works on the opinion page. And still has a hand in op-ed placements. Silly.
The premise of
shallow and
the premise of the piece also is facile in this way. If Jeff Bezos, I'm willing to take Jeff Bezos at his word that he wants. How did he phrase it? Individual
liberty and free market.
And free markets. If that's true, then he would often be at odds with Donald Trump, right? Then it's an opinion page. We talked about this a week ago. Read the Wall Street Journal opinion page. How often is the Wall Street Journal opinion page in accord with Donald Trump? Half the time? I don't know. I don't know what the number is. But I would say individual liberty and free markets are not the cornerstones of the MAGA agenda. And we'll see whether or not the Washington Post means to do that. But if they do it, then it will be at odds with Donald Trump sometime, and it won't be about them being in lockstep with Donald Trump. It'll be about Jeff Bezos getting the newspaper or getting the opinion section that he wants. And yes, this is a obsession / facile. And by the way,
but the real questions are, okay, who are they going to bring in to do this?
who should they bring in to do this?
I think there are lots of options out there.
I know the interviews are going on.
Really? I
yes.
was not aware of that.
I know that I know of multiple people who that this process is ongoing, and I know the answer.
What is the answer?
And I don't know whether this person is in the running. I don't know whether this person has been interviewed. I have not asked this person, and I don't know anything about it. But the correct answer is obviously Meghan McArdle. I don't know how it could be a better answer. She's inside the organization already. She is libertarian leaning. She's hilarious. She's collegial. What could be better than Meghan McArdle to be the new editorial page editor for the Washington Post?
I'm going to plug my boy Matthew Continetti.
Throw it out there. Get it in the mix. All right.
My predecessor at the Beacon.
Either would be great, right? Either would be great. That's a message to you, Jeff Bezos. You got a lot of options. You got a lot of good options out there.
All right, Chris.
Now, I know this is an obsession that you're going to love because it's about Patch. Okay. So this is courtesy of Axios. And Axios tells us that, have you ever consumed Patch's products?
No.
So Patch is a hyper-local, and they've been around for a long time. They were an early web company with a local news kind of bulletin board approach to covering small communities. And I found this piece amazing. Headline, Patch scales to 30,000 U.S. communities with AI newsletters. Patch, the hyperlocal digital news platform, has expanded its editorial presence to nearly every town in the U.S. using AI, according to CEO Warren St. John. I assume that's a made-up name. I assume that this is an alias. I don't think anyone is actually named Warren St. John, but I'm willing to accept it. And basically, they're going to keep their small number of nationwide employees, but have developed AI to pull stuff into community pages for all of these folks. And obviously, did you see the thing? I could have thrown it in here too. Did you see the thing about the LA Times and the AI?
Yes.
LA Times had an AI chatbot that offered alternate points of view to the opinion columns that were being offered.
Oh, what I like is their AI rater of, is this center, left,
right.
or
it's all
right.
It's all
great.
All part of one. And very quickly, the AI chatbot was defending the Nazis. It was like 90 seconds, and the AI chatbot is taking another point of view and following it down the path. And the LA Times shut it down quickly because it was silly. So the AI is not the answer to everything, but my long-term obsession about how AI can help local news be better and start to fill in the gaps, this is proof of concept. I don't know how the product works. I will use it. I will look at it. I will try to find out more. But this is in practice what I have been talking about, which is how it would be great if every small town in America had a robust local news outlet that was well-funded and well-staffed, but that ain't going to happen. There's just not enough money in Neosho, Missouri, or wherever, in Clendenin, West Virginia, for it to have its own crew of ink-stained wretches. But we can use AI to fill in these gaps, and AI assisted by human beings vetting what's coming in can fill in a lot of these gaps for rural America, because where people are missing out, if we look at the numbers from the post-pandemic recovery, it all happened in the cities and the suburbs. Didn't happen in the rest of the country. The rest of the country lost ground. Urban areas and suburbs have rebounded nicely, but the growth was all there And in rural America, it was not there. And in small town America, it was not there. This is a problem. And we need reliable news in these communities. And so I, for one, applaud our new AI overlords.
Chris, that brings us to reader mail. And we have 2 letters this week. The first is from Eric Botherbuth. I'm going to go with Booth just because it's more closer to Bluth.
I like it.
From Grand Rapids, Michigan. And he writes, "Hey, Wretches, on this week's podcast, Chris said that his second favorite movie was Unforgiven. I'd like to know his favorite movie. Apologies if he said it before on the podcast and I missed it."
What is your favorite movie?
The Big Lebowski.
Oh, give me 5 on that. Throw it up top. Yes, that's an excellent. What a great choice. And what an unchick choice. That's
Really?
a very unchick.
Oh, that's definitely my favorite
I
movie.
went to an early Lebowski fest, and I can tell you that, and now it's way out of control. Now it's too commercial. But I went because it was in Kentucky. It was not far from where I was living and working at the time. But Big Lebowski is a great movie. But there were not a lot of ladies at the Big Lebowski fest. My favorite movie is The Magnificent Seven, the original Magnificent Seven with Yul Brynner. It's got it all. It's beautiful. It's got enough. I don't know. I think favorite doesn't mean best. Favorite means it scratches some itch, and The Magnificent Seven is a movie that I can always watch. I can always enjoy. For some dudes, it's The Godfather. For some dudes, it's whatever, that it's their thing. And I've just, from the first time I saw The Magnificent Seven when I was a kid, I just love it. Is it because Yul Brynner's name in the movie is Chris? And it's the only action star that I'm aware of with the first name Chris. Maybe that grabbed me. But there is a scene where Yul Brynner and Steve McQueen meet in the early going of the movie. And there is a problem that they can't get, the Undertaker can't get the remains of a Native American up the hill into the cemetery because some folks are going to say they'll shoot him if they try. And there's a scene where these two guys meet and they get on the buckboard and they're strangers and they go up and do it. It's just and the movie has 10 perfect scenes like that. James Coburn in a knife fight, like there are just these beautiful set pieces in it. It's such a great movie. I enjoy it every time. Now I will have to watch The Magnificent Seven soon. And my hardest hit, The Man Children, who we mostly watch what they want to watch. We're currently watching Full Swing on Netflix, which is great, which I enjoy. And that's great. But it sounds like they're due for a springtime viewing of The Magnificent Seven.
Okay, Chris, our next letter is from Dave Wagner in Warrenton,
Virginia.
Okay.
Warrenton, Virginia, right here. I probably shops at the Town Duck. I love Warrenton. That's great.
And he writes, "Dear Eliana and Chris, can you tell me what this headline means? I can't make heads nor tails of it. Maybe it's a simple typo, but even so, it's pretty odd. My family loves your shows. We even thought about having our daughter listen, but she's a sensitive vegetarian, and as I put it to my wife, the show is pretty meat-focused at times. Please keep up the good work." And the headline is, well, that is not untrue. Wall Street worries Trump tariffs could wreck the souring economy.
Wall Street worries Trump tariffs could wreck the sour. So how do you wreck a sour? That seems like
I read it as could push
It's that the downturn is there. It's
could
souring.
push it over the edge into a recession.
But I don't think you wreck. I think wreck and souring disagree. You know what you could have said?
It's poorly worded.
You know what you could have said? Could curdle a souring economy. Look at me. I fixed it. There you go. Wall Street worries Trump tariffs could curdle the souring economy. That's great. Look, I did it. Hire me, Wall Street Journal. We're ready to go. And we are pretty meat focused at times. That's true. Because we do have this summer. We're having a barbecue cook-off. Is that where we settled?
Oh, we should totally do that.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have. It was ribs, right? Okay. We got to make plans for this summer for the rib cook-off.
We need to do that.
The Wretches rib cook-off.
We need to do that.
Because you know why? Because we're sophisticates.
Chris, that brings us to our favorite items of the week. Where I am forced to say something nice, and I'm going to have no problem this week.
Me neither. Eli Saslow with photographer Aaron Schaff went down to Williamson, West Virginia, a place that I have spent a lot of time, and does a profile on a nurse named Sam Runyon. It's a profile. It's a scene piece. It's excellent, of the story of this woman who does home visits for Medicaid recipients. I'm sure almost all of the people down in Mingo County, and it's tough living, right? Williamson, West Virginia. There's a lot of there's good living there, but there's a lot of tough living, and this is a really well written, and it doesn't feel hillbillies in the mist. It doesn't feel like she's not othering. He is not othering the people, which is something that I am always very sensitive to when somebody comes from New York and comes down to say, oh, look at these poor hillbillies. I think this is written with a lot of love, and I think it unlocks we're talking right now about changes to Medicaid, and one of the things that Republicans are really struggling with is their constituents. Mingo County, I'm sure, voted 80-20 for Donald Trump. These folks were Democrats. They and their parents were Democrats for a long time. Now they're Republicans. And the politics of this are interesting, but better than that was that they did this in a human and decent way, and I appreciate it.
My favorite item was a New York Times profile of a Stanford Medical School professor, Dr. Brian Lynn, and the headline is, when this professor got cancer, he didn't quit, he taught a class about it. And he has a terminal lung cancer diagnosis, stage 4 lung cancer, and they estimated he had about 2 years to live, and so he's teaching a medical school class about the patient experience of
That's cool.
Both the actual medicine of it and also like the patient to doctor experience here, and it's just fascinating. And it talks about the students' experience in the class, students with parents who've had cancer enrolling in the class, undergraduates asking to take the class because their parents had cancer when they were little and they'd never really been able to talk about it. It's really, really good.
Wow, we got New York Times tugging on heartstrings
really,
this
really
week.
Good. I loved it.
Oh.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Oh, I love it. I can't wait to read it.
That is all the time we have for the news about the news. If you have a story you want us to talk about, email us at wretches@nebulouspodcasts.com. That's wretches@nebulouspodcasts.com. This has been Ink-Stained Wretches from Nebulous Media, produced by Colin Chicola. Find us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Just search for Wretches.